Good evening, everybody. Um, Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's always a real privilege to think people are prepared to give up an hour of their evening and spend time with us. So we're very grateful for that. I'm Deborah O'Sullivan, MD at 10 to 2, and I'm delighted to be joined by Sema Rubins. Hi, Sema.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Deborah.
Um, so for those who don't know, 10 to 2 is a flexible recruitment agency. So we specialize in finding flexible and part-time roles for anybody looking for them. We talk to candidates all the time, and imposter syndrome is something that comes up an awful lot. So this is really helpful and timely to be covering off with an expert like Sema. So just a little bit of housekeeping. The presentation will run for about 30 minutes. We've got 10 minutes for questions at the end. Sema's produced a really lovely workbook, so you don't need to be scribbling down too many notes, but we'll send that out tomorrow with a recording. So if you want to, you can just sit and relax and you can have all the materials tomorrow. So I'm not going to waffle on anymore. I'm going to hand over directly to Sema.
Thank you, Deborah, and hello, everybody. And thank you so much for taking the time to join us on this short webinar on overcoming imposter syndrome and finding confidence when looking for work. I hope you find it useful. And as Deborah said, you don't need to take notes, although I always take notes, even if somebody says that they're going to send them, I always like to take my own notes. But okay, so here we go. So,
Sorry, Sema, I've just got
yeah,
someone saying the sound is echoing.
my
Um,
sound.
I don't know. Is that, can you, whoever's, yeah, Jaya, is that at my sound or Sema's sound? I don't know. Okay, let's carry on and see if we get,
Is it
oh,
echoing?
fix now. Okay, we're
Okay, all
done.
right, good, good, good. Okay, so who am I? Very quickly. So my name is Sema Rubins, and I'm a transformation and life and career change coach. I work with all ages at any stage of life. I'm married, two daughters in their 20s, and got my two dogs. I wasn't always a life coach, and I've had a really squiggly career. I started off with a degree in French and went into marketing, and that was my main career before I had children. I spent a really long time trying to find out what it was I wanted to do because I knew that I didn't want to stay at home just with my daughters. And I kept dabbling in many areas, but I landed on designing and making jewelry. It started as a hobby. People saw my jewelry, and then it became kind of a business for about 5 years. And when I was designing the jewelry, I realized that I had a creative side, something I didn't know that I had. So I went back to university and I did another degree in visual merchandising. This led me to set up my own events and exhibition company. And I organized events, designed exhibition stands for many years. And then I went in-house with a client and worked there for about 4 years. But I realized towards the end of that I was becoming kind of his assistant as opposed to his consultant. So I left with the aim of doing something a bit more meaningful. I started volunteering for the witness service, supporting witnesses who came in to give evidence in court. And it was there that I realized how much I love talking to people and supporting them through a hard time. And that was a hard time for them. And that's when I decided to train as a life coach. So I now also volunteer as a mentor for a care experienced young person, which I find really rewarding. But I still, after all these years, I still surprise myself that I am a life coach, as it was never something that I'd ever considered before, and certainly never something I thought that I could do. So it's been said many times that imposter syndrome is not a thing, and that the problem is not with the individual, often a woman, but with society. That we need to fix society's expectations before fixing imposter syndrome. There's obviously some truth in that, but I do believe that even if we don't label our feelings as imposterisms, feelings that we're about to discuss today are very real and completely warrant this discussion. You wouldn't all be here otherwise. So although we're here to talk about imposter syndrome in relation to work and finding a job, we should also ask ourselves whether it's only when you're looking for a job that you might have feelings of imposterism. And of course, the answer is absolutely not. So there are normally three conditions present when you feel imposter syndrome, and these can relate to all parts of your life. First one's visibility. This is when you're on show. So this could be when you're performing in some way on stage or making a presentation or a webinar or addressing a group of people. You feel like everyone's eyes are on you and you feel like you shouldn't be there. The second one is novelty, and that's when you're doing something new, something you haven't done before. So this could be when you become a parent for the first time. Nobody gives you a manual on what to do. And the third is minority, when you're in the minority when you're doing something. So this is when you take a different path to everyone around you. Let's say you decide to travel or take on an apprenticeship when all your peers have decided to go to university. So you might be thinking, what makes me an expert in imposter syndrome? Well, obviously, I'm not, because who really is an expert in it? But I think because I've retrained and changed career 3 or more times, I kind of had these feelings a lot of times. Each time I've had to start from the beginning. And each time I've had a new career, I felt a bit lost because you start afresh and you don't know what you're doing. So my thoughts have been, should I train some more to give me clout, make me feel more of an expert? Or should I wait before I launch my business until I'm completely ready? But I've always decided not to wait, but to just get on and do it. After all, what's the worst that can happen? So today's session plan is quite simple. We're going to talk about what is imposter syndrome. I'll give you some examples, talk about how it might show up in your life, and talk about how you might overcome these feelings. And then the most important bit, 14 practical tips to take away and hopefully which will help you. And then we'll have a few questions if we have time at the end. So
Before you launch into that, Sema, I forgot to say at the very beginning, there is a Q&A box at the bottom. So if there's a burning question anybody has and they want to put it in there, I'll either interrupt you with it or we'll save them to the end. But people can go ahead and put their questions in.
Okay, lovely. I'm going to make it a little bit interactive anyway, so I'm going to ask a couple of questions as we go along. So,
cool.
Yeah. Okay, so what is imposter syndrome? Well, the word syndrome makes us think it's a medical condition. What is it? So as I said before, I trained in all sorts of different things, and I'm certainly not a psychologist, and I've never trained in psychology. But imposter syndrome was first identified as a phenomenon by psychologists in 1978, and this is the definition that is normally used. Defined as a psychological condition that is characterized by persistent doubt concerning one's abilities or accomplishments, accompanied by the fear of being exposed as a fraud, despite evidence of one's ongoing success. The researchers surveyed over 100 women. All of the participants had already been formally recognised for their professional excellence by colleagues. And despite the constant external validation these women received, they lacked internal acknowledgement of their accomplishments. And when they were asked about their success, some participants attributed it to luck, while some believed that other people had overestimated their capabilities. They discovered that the women in the study experienced symptoms of generalized anxiety, lack of self-confidence, depression, and frustration related to the inability to meet self-imposed standards of achievement. It was also later widened to include men, as it can obviously apply to them too. So that was all quite a mouthful, but put simply, you just don't believe you deserve your success and that you will eventually be found out to be a fraud. So, what are the three main features of imposter syndrome? The main one is believing that others think you are more talented or skilled or intelligent than you actually are. Somehow you believe that they know you better than you know yourself. The next feature is that you're frightened that you'll be found out and labelled a fraud. People will think you have no right to be where you are or doing what you do. And the third feature is that you have a tendency to attribute your success to luck or feel that it was just because this particular time you worked so hard, but next time it might not work out for you and you will fall flat and fail. But you need to remember that most people have imposter thoughts or feelings at some time during their lives. They just don't talk about it. So as I said, trying to make a little bit interactive here. So maybe you could think of some times when you felt like you're an imposter and have found it really hard to shake this feeling. Just if you want to, note it down in the Q&A box, and we'll give you a few minutes, and well, and we can see what comes up for you, and then we can look at it at the end. Is that okay, Deborah?
Yeah.
I'm sure it won't take too long.
Okay.
Okay, so the next slide has got many statements on it. I'm going to go through them slowly. And again, have a think while I'm reading these statements out, whether any of them resonate with you. Why would anyone choose me instead of someone more qualified? Everyone thinks I'm fabulous, but every day I still worried that I will be found out. I've been out of work so long, I don't think I know what I'm doing anymore. I'm not sure if I really want to work. I feel stuck in my job and I don't think it works for me anymore. I need to do some more training before I apply for the job. I feel that I'm actually not worthy of getting a job. I'm really frightened to make a change. It's easy to stay as I am. I've forgotten how to sell myself. I doubt my abilities now, even though I used to be successful. Anyone can do what I can do. I don't deserve the job, as I know it was only given to me out of pity or because they knew my friend or my mother or my relative. My family and friends don't think I'm capable. So I thought it might be helpful to share a few examples of my clients have had imposter syndrome and how we worked on these feelings. Obviously, I've changed all the names. So firstly, we have Sally, 44-year-old woman. Sally moved abroad and she set herself up as an English teacher. She works in a school and gives private English lessons, but is aiming to build an online teaching business for professional adults. But she's constantly just doing more training instead of marketing herself. And if she does get inquiries, she just tends to find a reason not to take the work. So here we're looking at a woman who's worried that she's going to be exposed as a fraud, and she deals with that by procrastinating. Another woman, Jenny, 33-year-old, she works for a charity as her day job, but she has just put together an exhibition of her art in a public place. I actually went to see it. It was amazing. People have come to view the art and they've bought some of her pieces, but she said to me that she would never call herself an artist. Well, she doesn't feel that she deserves that title. Again, it's the fear of being exposed as not the person that you thought she was. And this is Chloe, a 40-year-old woman. I'd like to tell you a little bit more about her because she was fascinating. She actually came to me after attending this presentation. She was so nervous, anxious, and emotional when I first met her. She has 2 young children, a really supportive husband, but she had lost all confidence in herself. I asked her to tell me when was the last time she felt proud of herself. And the last time she remembers when she passed her A-levels, soon after coming to UK from Germany. She felt she'd lost her whole sense of identity and she really wanted to regain it through having her own job. But she was too nervous to apply for a paid job. But through our coaching sessions together, she decided to be brave and apply for a role in a charity, which she got and she excelled at. But the best news was that she got a paid part-time job at that charity and has been there for nearly a year. So although I said before, the term imposter syndrome was originally coined for high-flying women, men do also suffer from it and often have an even higher anxiety attached to it. So one of my clients was Brian. He was the CEO of a medium-sized company. He had over 30 staff working for him, but he came from really humble roots. He was the eldest of 7 children of working-class parents. His aim in life was to make money and to never have to worry again. He's been a workaholic all his life, and despite being really close to retirement, having achieved his aim and made a huge amount of money, he cannot shake the constant need to work and earn. He still feels he doesn't deserve his success. And he always said, how did I, a poor boy from Ireland, achieve so much? Surely one day my luck is going to run out. So being a workaholic is a protective mechanism as well. He's constantly waiting to be found out, and he wants to be prepared for when he is. So let's talk briefly about the symptoms of imposter syndrome. How do you know if you have it? After all, there's no blood test for it. So, have you ever felt plagued by feelings of self-doubt, not believing in yourself and feeling that you're not up to the job, a potential job that you're applying for, or a job that you're currently in? You ever felt that everyone else around you is better than you, that when you leave the room, they're all talking about you, or worst case scenario, making fun of you? Have you ever felt scared that people will eventually realize that you are not worthy of this job or this career? That at the end of this meeting you're in, they'll say, we made a mistake promoting you to this position. You need to go back to your old job. Or have you ever felt paralyzed by fear? You can't move forward. It's so much easier to stay where you are than attempt to change. And finally, have you ever felt that you just simply can't do it? And what were people thinking of trusting you with a job in hand? There were so many other people better qualified to do it. As we've said, this is completely normal. Many people feel this way, and sometimes this is a good thing. Actually, having a touch of imposter syndrome gives you humility and relatability. It can take away some potential arrogance, maybe, and makes you more vulnerable. And this is an attractive characteristic. We talk about being true to oneself, and although it's important to show confidence and inspire confidence in others, a bit of vulnerability can show people that you're human and have feelings and emotion, and that you are just like them. A great example of this honesty and humility is someone most of us know or have heard of, Nadia Hussain, winner of the Great British Bake Off 11 years ago now in 2025. When she won Bake Off, Nadia was so shocked that she made this amazing acceptance speech from the heart. And she's explained in interviews that as a female immigrant who'd been told all her life that her parents had been devastated when she was born, she wasn't a boy, and that her arrival had been a big disappointment, she didn't feel she deserved to achieve anything in her life. So this speech wasn't planned. She said the words just tumbled out. I'm never going to put boundaries on myself ever again. I'm never going to say I can't do it. I'm never going to say maybe. I'm never going to say I don't think I can. I can and I will. That's so inspirational. We all need to learn from her. Clearly, we can't all win Bake Off, but we can all dream and just jump in and try. The biggest risk is procrastination, not failure. If you don't try something, you'll never know if it could have worked. So how does imposter syndrome show up in your life? Maybe you have high expectations of yourself. You're a perfectionist. Things have to be perfect, or you just don't do them. You put things off. I'll just do one more training course, then I'll be ready. And this is pure procrastination. You always feel like you don't know what you're doing, even though you've done it before. You fear being judged, and this can be quite crippling. Sometimes, because of this, you compare yourself to others, even though their life or work isn't comparable to yours. So you're suffering from comparison anxiety. So how can you start to overcome these feelings? The first step is to think about what caused you to have these feelings in the first place. Often the roots come from being criticized or compared to others in childhood. Your sister is the clever one. You're good at sports. Or don't worry about ballet. You're not graceful. This is something my mother said to me often. John doesn't like sports. He prefers to read on his own in the corner. As children, we internalize these observations about our character or ability, and we feel they define who we are. So it means that we're stuck at a point of our development path years ago, and now we need to move past that point. So once we understand what our triggers are and what we are saying to ourselves, we can start to challenge those negative thoughts I'm also clever, but not at the subjects that my sister was. I'm good at problem solving, but she's good at writing essays. So this is obviously quite a long process and not an overnight fix. And I would say this is something that a life coach could help you with. Understanding your triggers is a great starting point to move forward and to help you move away from those entrenched thoughts that you might have from childhood.
Sema, just to pop in there, somebody's put on the Q&A. Um, I'm a younger sibling and always felt I would never do as well as my older sister and could never catch up.
Yeah, that's so, so true. Well, you'll never catch up, will you? I mean, there's always that age gap. So there we are, someone's shared something. But if there's anyone else who'd like to share anything they might have thought of as a root cause, pop it in the Q&A box and we can see later what's come up for you. So the more positive bit, what can you actually do to overcome imposter feelings? The previous point about the triggers, everything might feel like it was something quite long-winded, but it's really worth thinking about. Maybe think about journaling, getting your thoughts onto paper. I recently went to a wellness retreat in Morocco where I did a journaling workshop, which was so simple. So the way you do it is you ground yourself with your feet on the floor and practice some deep breathing. While you're breathing, pose yourself a question. When you're ready, set a timer for 7 minutes and write the answer to that question. Keep your pen on the paper as much as you can, so it's a flow. And when you finish, go back and read it and see what the essence of the answer is. And this could be the beginning of an insight into what is happening for you in your daily life. Anyway, what I'm sure you would really like from today is have some practical tips to take away with you. So I say a few, but we've actually got 14, so bear with me. So, tip 1, you really are not alone. Everybody has felt like an imposter at some time in their lives. Before you do anything for the first time, you don't have the experience yet or the evidence that you can do it. So there's always that nagging worry that you can't. So discuss your worries with others and you're certainly not alone in these feelings. Also own the feelings. It's not always a bad thing to doubt yourself. It makes you try harder, and when the result is positive, it can feel even better. Self-doubt, as we said before, can also give you humility and make you more relatable. No one likes someone who is overconfident. So ask others, people you admire or respect, whether they have ever felt like this before and how did they overcome those feelings. Tip 2, think about times in your life when things didn't go as planned and you felt that you had failed. Try and work out why these things happened. Was it just down to you, or were there circumstances out of your control? Maybe you had applied for a part-time job and during the interview process they decided they would prefer it to be full-time after all. This actually happened to me and I was devastated for quite a long time. I then found out the person who got the job was put in an impossible position and was set up to fail. She left within 6 months and the boss's husband took over. And make of that what you will. So think about what you can learn from this apparent failure. I learned with that job that often things are not as they seem, and I was never going to get that job. So it wasn't personal at all. Tip 3, have a look at people who you believe are better than you in some way and ask yourself, or maybe even ask them, how did they get to where they are today? What is it that they did that is so different to what you're doing? Is there anything more that you could do, learn, research in order to reach the level that they're at? In this instance, use comparison to your advantage. Tip 4. This is one of my favorites and something I do very regularly, in fact, every morning. I listen to other people's stories on podcasts, and the one that I love the most is How to Fail with Elizabeth Day. It's incredible how many celebrities were not always confident and actually still aren't. And these stories are often inspirational and surprising. In fact, I went to a live recording of a podcast where Elizabeth Day was interviewing the very famous Craig David. And the hour-long interview, they each mentioned how they both had imposter syndrome several times. It was extraordinary. So again, ask yourself, how did they get to where they are today? And what could you do to achieve what you were dreaming of? Tip 5, list your own accomplishments in your life, your achievements, and believe me, there will be many. Look at your transferable skills. If you're at home with the kids now, do you have to organize their lives? Do you love planning? Do you love meeting new people? Are you able to multitask? Do you love decorating, updating your home? Are you an amazing cook? Are you doing voluntary work? Think about how these skills can be transferred to the job that you would like. Next one is create a personal CV for yourself, not for an employer. This is something I got one of my clients, the English teacher, to do, and it really helped her. Write down everything you've achieved in your life, your qualifications, any courses you've attended, any awards you've received, sporting achievements, your children, jobs you've had, or just things you're proud of. For example, you might have recently decorated your house on a tight budget. Put it up on the wall. Every time you doubt yourself, look at it. Next one. Write yourself an elevator pitch. And this is a 1-minute speech about yourself, your achievements, and what you're hoping to do. It's something we use in networking a lot, but it can be really useful for everyday life. You just never know when you might bump into someone who has a job opportunity, and you don't want to freeze in the moment. You want to be ready to sell yourself and your skills at any moment. And if you don't know how to structure an elevator pitch, it's in the handout, so you'll get that after the session. Positive thinking. Now, some of you might be thinking, I'm not sure I believe in such nonsense, a bit spiritual, but truly, manifestations and affirmations can be transformational. Energy is around us every day, and we can change this energy by the way that we think. Manifestations work to program your mind and help you to believe that you've already achieved your goal and that you already have that job. They work by you writing down where you'll be in the future. So, for example, I am Joanna Smith and I have a great job. I work in the film and studio part-time and I still have plenty of time to spend with my children. Say it out loud, believe it, and write the affirmation on post-it prompts and put them up around the house. This will help to build a conscious awareness of what you want. Positivity really does attract positivity. So be positive as much as you can, and good things will happen. So think about what has changed in your life since you gave up work or started your current job. Are you the same person? Look at what your values are now. Have they changed? If you're not sure how to do this, this is something, again, a life coach can help you with. Reconnect with your professional self. You might just be out of practice. Remind yourself of what you used to do in your job. Think about your qualifications, training, your many achievements, and what do you want or need from this new job or business? What have you done since leaving the job? Have you moved country? You've had a baby or two? Have you been traveling? Reframe your time outside work as a positive, not a negative. And this one seems easy, but speak to your friends and your family. Ask them to describe you. What do they see as your skills and strengths? It really might surprise you. This is all feedback, and possibly it's the evidence you're looking for. And hopefully this feedback, which is positive, should help you challenge your negative thoughts and the feelings that you can't do it, that you're not qualified for the job, or that you don't deserve to move on. Note down what they say and add them to your personal CV. Try not to procrastinate too much. We all do this. It can be so easy to spend time doing additional training, updating your skills, and thinking that once you've learned or done something or other, you'll be finally ready to apply for that job or to change jobs. Being busy always feels good, but you need to be busy moving forward. So if you're going to take a course, do it at the same time as updating your CV, applying for that job and going to interviews. And one of the easiest ways to build an accountability is just to set yourself a simple deadline. If you do nothing else, this should spur you into action. If you do experience some failure, and it's likely you will at some stage during the job search, look at it as a learning experience. Always try and get feedback if you can. It's not always that easy, but if you can, find out what it was that made them choose someone else. And remember, they didn't reject you. They just chose someone who was a better fit for the job. And armed with that feedback, you will do better next time. And this is another one of my favorite tips, and one that's really worked well for me. Get a mentor or mentor someone else. Mentoring someone else may seem tough when you feel underqualified, but this is so often an unfounded fear. By explaining something to someone who knows less than you, you'll be reminded how much you've learned over the years. And if you don't want to be a mentor or find that hard, volunteer to talk to some local students about what you've achieved since leaving school or university. Once they start asking you questions that you can actually answer with confidence, and you will be able to, and it is about you, you will feel so much better. You will have that evidence that you are qualified and that you are worthy. Finally, this is really important, don't confuse being an amateur with being an imposter. When you start something new, whatever it might be, you're not allowed to not know what you're doing. You are allowed to not know what you're doing. This is often the time that we feel uncomfortable. The main difference between imposters and non-imposters, and these are people without imposter feelings or thoughts, is that when an imposter doesn't know something, they will feel that they should know it. In the same situation, a non-imposter will not feel that they should know the same. They feel they have time to learn and do not have the same expectations themselves. So it's about controlling your response to the situation and allowing yourself to be an amateur. Everyone has to start somewhere. A job is always new when you first start, and you are allowed to have time to learn. In career coaching, we talk about making the first 90 days count, and this is all about getting the balance right between giving yourself permission to observe and learn at the same time as proving yourself. Remember, we're all unique and have a unique package of skills and talents because we are all different. Embrace it and be kind to yourself and give yourself permission to not know everything. So in conclusion, remember, imposter syndrome is completely normal and can work in your favor occasionally. You're not alone, just talk to people around you and you'll see that they also feel the same way. And even though it's a very strong feeling, try not to give in to it. Acknowledge the feelings you're having and use them to move forward. Hopefully, some of the tips I've given you will help. And that's it.
Fantastic, Sema. Thank you so much. There's loads of material there and loads of food for thought. So fantastic. I just wanted to add to one of your last points, which is there's research, and we hear it from clients all the time, that says that the expectation is for a full-time person in a job, they don't reach full productivity for 6 months. So
6 months, yeah.
So if you're in a part-time job, it's even longer, obviously.
Even longer, yeah. So these very short probation periods are not fair, really, are
they? Yeah. Okay, so we've got quite a few things to go through. So just a couple. I'll just share a few things people talked about when they were saying when they feel like an imposter. So somebody said when they started their own freelance copywriting business. Someone said when they started a new job. Someone said when they started a new job or presenting. And then this is just classic. I got a senior position after selling myself well and then worried that I'm not actually good enough. I always feel like I'm meant to know all the answers from day one. So there we go. We just covered that.
Yeah.
Somebody asked a question about imposter syndrome and menopause and if there is any link. I don't know if you know that.
Well, I think that the link is that hormones do make you feel very unbalanced, and I think it's a period of anxiety when you're going through menopause, and often you doubt yourself in the most normal of situations, let alone at work. So I think there is a really big link. So it is important to go and maybe to make HR aware, but also go see a doctor if you can get some help because it is, it's from the hormones.
Sure. Somebody asked when you were talking about the journaling, if you can give an example of the kind of question that sparks the best outcome when you're journaling.
So I think it's about looking back at what I was thinking about was looking back at your childhood. I know in that example, when I was doing the retreat, I sort of thought back to what made me feel like I wasn't as good as my sister. So I've always had a very big comparison problem with her. She's 4 years older, and I always thought that she was more outgoing, more fun, and it was amazing. In 7 minutes, it did all come out that I was I just felt in awe of her, and the louder she was, the quieter I got. So it kind of showed me that actually I need to surround myself with people who are not as loud.
Mm,
That's
okay,
my example. It's going back to where you think the feelings have come from.
sure. Thank you for sharing that. It's very, I can understand that. I've got an older sister myself who's very loud. Somebody said they love the idea of a personal CV, so I reckon that's going to be actioned. Um, Somebody said I've left several jobs from burnout. Wonder whether this is due to my perfectionism and busting my gut on every job. I think maybe this is the way imposter syndrome turns up in my life.
Burnout is another big one because you can't let anything go because you feel you have to prove yourself over and over again. And you're trying to prove to yourself that you can do it. So that internal validation is what you're looking for. But you want external validation as well, but you're not getting the internal because you never feel you've done enough, probably.
Mm,
Very
mm.
important to remember. It's all about expectation.
There's a couple of people saying thank you for the menopause answer. They're experiencing that too. Um, I don't know. Someone saying, do you have an example of a personal CV you could share? She really likes the idea.
No, because I've never done one myself, but it really is just noting down, maybe split it up into your achievements of, your school, university, your current life, your hobbies, what you do well, and just make it one page. You can make it quite pretty so that you can see it. Um, but I would split it down into areas so you can start thinking um,
I
about.
think the point you raised about things you're proud of, I think that's
Yeah,
quite a nice starting point
yeah.
because and I think if you're really hard on yourself, you'd go, well, I'm not really proud of anything.
Until
And so
something.
then
Yeah.
that's the challenge, isn't it? To say,
Yeah.
well, of course you must be proud of
That's
something.
something. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Exactly.
cool. Okay. You talked about the root cause of imposter feelings. Someone's saying, as parents, how do you think we can help our children not to have these feelings?
Um, I think one thing is important as parents is to show your children that you're not perfect. So children often think that mummy and daddy can do absolutely anything, that they are the world. But if you maybe intentionally, when you're helping them with their homework or something, get a few things wrong, and you get the times table wrong, which I would do anyway, and they can correct you. They can see that you're not this sort of perfect person, so that they don't strive for perfection always. I think that's and just praise them for the little things and but don't say how great they are for getting 10 out of 10 because that's not what they mustn't strive for that. They need to strive for what's good for them.
Sure, sure. Um, Final question. How do you keep believing in yourself when you know you're being set up to fail?
Oh, that's such a hard one.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah. How do you believe it? Well, I think, just try and remind yourself or get other people to remind you that will give you positive feedback. Um,
Mm,
of the great things that you have to offer. Because actually, if you're being set up to fail, you're in the wrong environment.
yes.
So that's the
And
place that you
yeah,
should be.
yeah, no, you're right. And I think you're often we talk to candidates who are in jobs who are unhappy, want to move in those types of situations. And my advice is always look at the big picture. Are they actually setting you up to fail, or is it just the company is not set up correctly for anyone to
Yeah.
thrive and succeed? And it often is. It's often just a toxic culture that's not
Yeah.
working.
Or there's something else going on in the background, the company's not doing well, and so they're taking it out on the people that work for them. You just don't know, but it's not a place you want to be if you have the
No,
opportunity to leave or to make a change within the company. But if you're being set up to fail, then that's they're not valuing you, are they?
no, absolutely, absolutely. Um, okay, I'm gonna cut it there because that we're spot on time and that was absolutely brilliant. If there's any questions we haven't covered, we'll follow up with some frequently asked questions tomorrow with the recording and the workbook. So you have lots of homework, everybody who's managed to stay with us. Sema, thank you so very much. It's a
Thank
brilliant,
you.
brilliant presentation, really, really helpful. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
And thank you, everybody, for staying the course. And we'll see you on our next webinar, hopefully very soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.